comes with this around it. It actually has to be trimmed off. And this is part of the reason why tenderloin gets so bloody expensive. Like, you don't want to have to chew through that. So you're going to have to take a moment and trim it all down. And it's just a matter of pushing your knife in, getting underneath it, and just running with a strip of it as far as you can. There's no magical way of doing this. You have to just trim it up. And sometimes when you get them in the grocery store, they package them ever so conveniently, so they don't take all of the trim off of it, right? But if you can sell scrap or garbage for $5, $6, $10 a pound, you're making pretty good money. At least when you go to the abattoir, you can see what you're getting straight up. So quite often in the butcher shops and such, you can run your knife right through there without actually puncturing the meat and remove the connective tissue. You're not really losing any meat, but you're getting rid of the connective tissue. It just takes a little bit of practice with the knife. A flexible boning knife is good to work with for that. If you want, you can save your scraps and put it in the soup, but if it's just connective tissue, you're not going to want to cook or eat that. It's not the tastiest thing unless you're trying to actually get gelatin removed from the product.
In a grocery store, are there any rules on how much cleaning up has to be done to sell that as tenderloin?
It's, well, it's tenderloin right from the start. So it just depends on, there's a number of things that dictate how far meat will be processed in a grocery store. And the main one is consumer awareness. Most of us now, you know, I'm hearing stories about when we were kids and killing chickens and doing things like that. We don't do those things anymore. We pay other people to do it. And so if you're coming into my grocery store, and I sell you a cut of meat, but you're not an educated consumer, and you don't realize that, well, that cut of meat, you should have tied it and rolled it and tenderized it a little bit, where a piece like this, you can grill it, all the different cooking methods. I want you to be able to walk away and have a good experience with the meat every time. So when you go into grocery stores now, it's all the primary cuts that have been processed as much as possible so that it's convenient for you, and you usually have guaranteed success as possibly an uneducated consumer. So is there a rule to it? No. When it comes to the culinary side of it, when it comes to the marketing and success of the business, you're going to want to take it as far as you can so that the customer has a good experience. Quite often, you'll see your tenderloins possibly packaged like that. You get it home, lazy butcher, didn't take that off, which is not a big deal because most people will not sit down and eat that as a whole cut of meat. We usually cut it into little medallions and such, or we might cook it whole and then slice it into little medallions. And you're just going to have a chewy bit on one end of it, but you're only going to have, out of that whole piece, only that much is going to be chewy. So when you're at home, if you remove what we refer to as the silver skin, or that connective tissue, it makes it easier to work with. Now I literally just hack the heck out of that, but anyways, it's my money, not yours, don't worry. The more that you take it down, the cleaner it is, the better the product that you're going to get. Now that silver skin still continues to flow up through this piece of meat. I only take out what's visible. If you keep chasing it all the way through there, you're going to get up to almost into here where it connects again. And so you're going to have to remove all that meat that you don't need to. It's those large pieces on the outside that you're going to want to get rid of. But you can see then where if they do get a $6 piece, or they start off with a $2 piece of meat, where you have to pay someone there, especially if it's a unionized grocery store and whatnot, to stand there and do what I'm doing. And I was drinking last night and I wasted a little bit of meat. How quickly it can impact the cost of our meat as well, and where our food dollars are actually going to. It's usually going into other people processing the food for us. Just knowing the cuts of meat, how you actually work with them and such, is absolutely critical if you want to try different cuts and such, but most people don't. You go into the grocery store, chickens, you can get whole chickens for roasting and such, but usually everything's got the bone out of them. Even the thighs now, they're selling them with the bone already removed and such. I like them with the bone in. There's more flavor, there's more juice. A lot of that, I guess, did come from chefs and such in the way that we cook, because we like to take the bones out of everything so we can eat with a knife and fork and be all polite and civilized. But we do take all the bones and then boil them or simmer them in pots making stocks, so we can take that flavor and put it back into the food in the form of sauce. It just depends on how you want to approach your food and such. So lots of connective tissue on this one. Now if you wanted to, flip it this way. Now obviously you need a kitchen at home that you got a little bit of space to work in. You gotta be not so concerned about flopping an animal around, without taking out the kids when they're walking by. But you can trim this back a bit if you choose to and get more straight loin chops for a bit. I cut into here. You can see I'm already getting into all those different cuts. Now that there, that was on a cow, I'd call that a ribeye or a prime rib, depending on where it's coming from off of the animal and such. If it was beef, you can see there really isn't the marbling in here that we get in beef where we have pockets in fat, but you can see the little fine lines of fat that run all the way through it. That allows us not to have to marinate our food so much because it's going to be pretty tender. The fat's going to be evenly dispersed through it, which means it's going to have a good balance of flavor as well. You can marinate pork products by all means, especially if you're going to be using cuts like this that might have a lot of connective tissue in it if you want to soften it a bit, but you don't necessarily have to. You also do not need to cook your pork to well done, as we did growing up. The reason that we always served it with applesauce was because it was so bloody dry when we went to eat it, you needed the applesauce to choke it down. In lamb, they always served with mint sauce. Well, if they'd served lamb, we wouldn't need the mint sauce, but it was usually old mutton. And again, we cooked the life out of it, and we put this stuff called mint sauce on it. It was absolutely horrific. So we could choke it down, and we wouldn't have to taste the mutton. Mint was the only thing that would cover up the taste of mutton, because it was so strong. It would be an old sheep. Times are changing. Trichinosis was the reason that our parents and grandparents cooked pork to death and dried it right out. There was concern about the trichinosis worms getting into the food chain and such, and therefore infecting humans. Trichinosis has been eradicated in cultivated pork across Canada since the early 1980s. In 1985, it was announced we can now eat our pork medium rare. Some people like their bacon crunchy. Some people barely cook it. Same thing. You don't have to cook it to death. Cook it to your preferred doneness. You can do it medium. You can do it medium rare, just like beef. Just don't try and make sushi or tartare out of it.
Most beef thermometers only have one setting. Show one.